Hello, this is Mrs. Ross, and this is part 2 of your Module C, Unit 1, Lesson 3, Matter and Ecosystems Notes. We stopped here. Why is carbon essential to life? And this is on page 50. This is page 50. The first sentence here under the carbon cycle says, carbon is essential to life because all cells are made of carbon-based molecules. So that's your answer there. What drives the carbon cycle or transfers of carbon? Let's see, what drives the carbon cycle? Transfer carbon. Energy also drives carbon transfers between. So energy is what's going to drive the carbon cycle between land, water, air without using living organisms, okay? And how do human activities affect the carbon cycle? It affects in two ways. Let's see. Burning down fossil fuels speeds up the transfer of carbon from earth to air, and cutting down forests slows down the transfer of carbon from air to living things. So those are the two ways that human activities affect the carbon cycle. The burning of fossil fuels speeds up the transfer of carbon from earth to the air, and the cutting down of forests slows down the transfer of carbon from the air to living things. So let me scroll down, scroll. And here we have the 4 steps of the carbon cycle. Come on, there we go. And what you'll see, some of these are the same. So photosynthesis is one of the steps, you find that twice. Respiration is one of the steps, you find that twice. Combustion is a step, and decomposition, okay? So as far as steps, it doesn't matter what order you go in. Photosynthesis, respiration, combustion, decomposition, those are the steps. And then the sources of carbon in the carbon cycle, there's carbon in organisms, there's carbon in fossil fuels, and there's carbon in the air. So there's carbon in organisms, and there's two, here they have organisms from the sea and organisms on the land, but carbon in organisms, carbon in the air, and carbon in fossil fuels. Okay, where did I lost it. There, okay. So next page, what are artificial trees? This is going to be on page 51, so let's scroll down because we're currently on page 50. Okay, artificial trees are human-made systems engineered to collect carbon pollutants from the air. Okay, this is one of them. This is a tower that removes carbon from the air. You can kind of see how large it is compared to the people. Artificial trees are human-made systems engineered to collect carbon pollutants from the air. Where are artificial trees used? These systems can be used in locations where it may be difficult to grow real trees, such as dense urban areas, so like cities, big cities, where you're not going to have a whole lot of ground that you can plant a tree. How can artificial trees be powered? Artificial trees can be powered by wind and solar energy. And then how is the energy from the swings used in artificial trees? What kind of swings am I talking about? Let's see. They can also be powered with energy generated by swings or seesaws attached to the system. The energy generated by motion of people swinging can be transferred to the artificial tree and used to power the carbon collection system. So that's what I would do. How the energy generated by the motion of people swinging can be transferred to the artificial tree. So what they could do is they could tie this into, say, a swing set or a park of some kind, a seesaw or something, and as people played on those items, it would transfer them the energy of motion to this artificial tree so that it could power the carbon collection process. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. And now we're on steps of the nitrogen cycle. There's 7 steps. We're on page 51. So here's the nitrogen cycle right here. Let's see what we've got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's go ahead and just answer the questions here. So we have nitrogen from the air. Bacteria changes nitrogen into a usable form. Nitrogen in plants, nitrogen absorbed by plant roots, nitrogen from, you could say a consumer, it says a rabbit here, but any consumer really, nitrogen in dead organisms, and then bacteria change nitrogen back into gas, and that's kind of the circular nitrogen cycle. Okay, so let's see what this question is. Summarize the carbon cycle. Based on the carbon cycle, hypothesize how the combustion of fossil fuels affects the amount of carbon in the ocean. Justify this hypothesis. So this is one of your quick check questions. And it's asking there are 2 questions. So it says, based on the carbon cycle, hypothesize how the combustion of fossil fuels affects the amount of carbon dioxide in the ocean. So the amount of carbon dioxide in the ocean increases as the amount of carbon dioxide in the air increases, because the ocean absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. The amount of carbon dioxide in the ocean increases as carbon dioxide increases in the atmosphere. The ocean absorbs carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Now explain how this could be tested. So what we could do is we could determine the amount of carbon dioxide released by fossil fuels and determine the amount of carbon dioxide in the ocean over time to see if there's a correlation. You know, as the amount of carbon dioxide released by fossil fuels increases, does the amount of carbon dioxide in the ocean over time increase as well? And then you could determine a correlation. So that should be your answer. You might want to pause and write some of that down. Okay, and the last thing we have here is, what did Charles Elton do? He did two things, and this should be on page 53. So we're on page 51. Let's scroll down. Okay. It says he is credited with establishing ecology as a scientific field. That would be one. He established ecology as a scientific field. Let's see what he did. It says he discovered that food chains display a pyramid of numbers. So basically, it says he spent his life trying to explain ecosystem dynamics using viable numbers. It says he gathered a large amount of data to draw conclusions about ecosystem populations. So why don't we say that he was credited with establishing ecology and that he gathered a large amount of data to draw conclusions about ecosystem populations? Those will be the two things that we put right here. Now, if you have any questions about your notes, please let me know. Have a great day.